Bullets didn't stop him. He just laughed and kept coming. We stood in the ruins of a city that had once belonged to us. Smoke curled from the wreckage. Ash drifted through the air like dead snow. The sky was black with the remnants of our failure. He stood in front of us. A man. A human. But nothing about him was normal. Our commander shouted, "Fire." The rifles roared. The ground trembled under the force of our weapons. We watched as rounds punched into his flesh. Blood sprayed. Bones cracked. But he did not fall. He did not stop. He only laughed, a deep guttural sound like amusement, like he found this funny. We reloaded, fired again. The bullets ripped into him. His uniform shredded. His body jerked. But he moved forward. One step, then another. Slow, deliberate. Eyes locked onto us. Eyes filled with something ancient. Something wrong. The commander cursed. "Bring the heavy weapons." The rockets launched. Explosions tore through the street. Flames engulfed him. The shockwave knocked us backward. We covered our heads, waited for the smoke to clear. He emerged, skin burned, flesh peeling. But beneath the destruction something gleamed, something metallic. He was not a man, not entirely. His wounds closed, his bones snapped back into place. We had heard the rumors, that humans were different, that they did not break like we did, that they could endure. But this was impossible. He grinned, rows of teeth like knives. I expected more. His voice was raw, a scraping sound. He flexed his fingers, took another. Step panic hit us. We ran. We had no choice. We had fought wars, conquered planets, crushed entire civilizations beneath our boots. But we had never fought anything like him. His laughter followed us, and he kept coming. The air reeked of burning metal and blood. Smoke curled from the wreckage of our once proud city. Buildings lay in ruins. The streets were littered with the bodies of my fallen brothers. The battle had raged for hours, maybe days. Time no longer mattered. Only survival. Only escape. And then he appeared. A single human, standing alone in the destruction. At first, we thought he was just another soldier, an enemy like the others we had slain. He was battered, his uniform torn, his face streaked with dirt and blood. But there was something else, something wrong. He was smiling. Our commander barked the order. "Fire." We obeyed without hesitation. Our rifles roared to life. The bullets tore into him, flesh split, blood sprayed across the cracked pavement. His body jerked under the force of our firepower, but he did not fall. He took a step forward, another. His boots crunched over the debris. He rolled his shoulders as if shaking off the pain, and then he laughed. A deep sound, raw, almost joyful, like he was enjoying this, like we were nothing more than entertainment. Panic flickered through our ranks. No, that was impossible. He should have been dead. Dozens of bullets had ripped through him. His organs should have failed. His body should have collapsed. But instead, he kept coming. The commander snarled, "Bring the heavy weapons." Our gunners rushed forward. They set up the cannons. The barrels glowed hot as they unleashed destruction upon him. Explosions rocked the streets. Flames engulfed his form. The ground beneath him cracked. Dust and debris filled the air. We waited. Guns still aimed. Breath held. The smoke parted. He was still standing. His body was a nightmare of torn flesh and exposed muscle. But beneath the shredded skin, something gleamed, something metallic. He was healing. His wounds sealed before our eyes. Bones snapped back into place with sickening pops. His ruined skin wove itself back together. It was unnatural. It was horrifying. We had heard the rumors, whispers of human endurance, legends of their ability to push past pain, to survive the impossible. But this was something else. This was beyond anything we had faced before. He grinned. His teeth gleamed like knives. I expected more. His voice was rough, gravel and steel. He cracked his knuckles. A slow, deliberate motion. I felt fear. True fear, the kind that clawed up from the gut and strangled the mind. We had conquered planets, wiped out entire species, but we had never fought anything like him. The commander bellowed another order. Fall back. We ran. We did not look back, but his laughter followed us, and he kept coming. The air burned with the acrid scent of smoke and blood. Our once glorious city lay in ruins, its towering spires reduced to jagged skeletons of steel and stone. The streets, once filled with life, were now littered with the bodies of my fallen brothers. Their empty eyes stared up at a sky choked with fire and ash. We had been winning. We had crushed entire armies. We had leveled their cities and slaughtered their leaders. The humans should have broken. They should have surrendered. But they didn't. And then we saw him. He stepped forward through the haze of war. A single human against an entire battalion. His uniform was torn. His skin was a patchwork of blood and dirt. His hands flexed at his sides as if he were preparing for something. And then he smiled. It was not the smile of a man facing death. It was the smile of something that knew death and no longer feared it. The commander raised a fist. Fire. We obeyed. The rifles roared. Bullets cut through the air in streams of molten fury. I saw them strike him, saw them rip into his flesh. Blood sprayed across the cracked pavement. His body jerked with each impact. Dozens, hundreds of rounds. No one could survive that. No one. And yet, he took a step forward. Then another. His boots crushed glass and bone beneath them. His shoulders rolled as if shaking off a mere inconvenience. His grin widened, and then he laughed. It was a terrible sound. A deep, guttural, amused noise that sent ice crawling down my spine. I fired again. So did the others. But nothing changed. Our bullets meant nothing to him. He kept coming. The commander shouted for the heavy weapons. Our gunners scrambled forward, hauling out plasma cannons and railguns. We did not hesitate. We unleashed everything. We had explosions consumed him. A firestorm erupted, heat scorching the air, turning pavement to liquid slag. The shockwave sent us tumbling back. The ground split beneath us. Dust and debris choked the battlefield. We waited. And then, he stepped out of the fire. His body was torn, his uniform barely clinging to him. His flesh hung in strips, his exposed, ribs gleaming white. But even as we watched, he healed. Muscle knitted itself back together. Skin sealed shut. Blood reversed its flow. Within seconds, he was whole again. This was no man. This was something else. The whispers had been true. The stories, the legends. The humans could not be broken. They could not be stopped. Pain did not slow them. Death did not claim them. I saw it then. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to enjoy himself. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his knuckles, spoke in a voice like grinding steel. Is that all you've got? The commander's face twisted in something I had never seen before. Pure, unfiltered. Fear. Retreat. The order came too late. The human was already moving. He closed the distance faster than I thought possible. A blur of raw, terrifying power. His fist slammed into the first soldier. Armor shattered. Bone exploded. A body meant to withstand war folded like paper. Screams filled the air. He did not use a weapon. He didn't need one. His hands were his weapons. His body was a machine of death. He moved like a storm, weaving between us, striking with precision. I saw him lift a soldier by the throat and squeeze until the helmet cracked like brittle glass. Another he crushed against the pavement. The commander drew his blade, a weapon of pure energy, and lunged. The human caught the blade with his bare hand. The metal sizzled against his skin. He did not flinch. He did not scream. He only looked at the commander with something close to amusement. Then he drove his other fist into the commander's chest. The impact was sickening. The commander fell. He did not rise. And then we broke. Panic overtook us. We had faced horrors before. Beasts, machines, plagues. But nothing like this. Nothing that laughed in the face of death. Nothing that could not die. We turned and ran. I did not look back, but his laughter followed us, and he kept coming.